Okay, Exodus. We're in 18. That's where we're at. That's good. I was just testing. Thanks. We're in Exodus chapter 18. And just in a quick review, we have the book of Exodus is a place. There are two very important things in the book of Exodus. Number one is the children are released out of bondage. Number two is God has bonded or bound himself to the children of Israel, and he said, you are my people. You are my chosen ones. And so they were released from bondage, but at the same time, God has also bonded himself to them. Now, and just before we get into going further, I just want to cover something really quickly. Something I thought it would be interesting to cover, that when I was in Bible college, at Vintage Bible College, this was one of the lessons that we had. It's called God's covenants with man, which was very important. God's covenants with man, and in it talks about the different covenants. And most people, I don't know if you realize this, but there are many covenants throughout the scriptures, and each covenant is for a period of time, but it improved through the process. So a covenant, the best explanation of a covenant would be if you had a mortgage with somebody, a lender, you had a mortgage on your house, and all of a sudden you refinance it for a better rate. And now the old covenant is done away with, and you're under the new covenant. Now the principle is still the same. You still got to pay it. You understand? There's still a relationship. You understand? That type of thing. But the goal is, so covenants, that's sort of an example. That's not a full example of a covenant, but a covenant is not based on, the difference between a covenant and a contract is a contract based on performance. Now, if you perform, this contract is good, you understand? And my contract with you is based on your performance. Now, you start messing up, and it comes time to renew. You ain't going to get a better deal. I can tell you that right now. You don't believe me, ask Isaiah Thomas, who just got sent out to the Lakers. It's going to be tough for the fella now, and that type of thing. So, so in order to get a better deal, you got to get a better deal when you performing well. God is not like that. God has covenants, and covenants are not based on performance. So marriage is a type of covenant, and that type of thing. It's a covenant. It means that if in marriage, when I married my wife, it was not based on performance or any of that type of thing. It's a covenant. If it was based on performance, she'd have kicked me out a long time ago. You understand? So it's covenant. And so with God uses covenants in his relationship with us. And so real quickly, there's the Edenic covenant, which is from Edom, Garden of Eden. With Adam, you had that covenant. That was a covenant. And the interesting thing is that covenant was really based on dominion. The promise is always a promise in the covenant. The covenant was, I'm gonna give you dominion. I'm gonna be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue, have dominion over all the earth. That's the covenant. All right. And so he gives instructions. Each covenant has instructions. His instructions was replenish the earth, subdue and conquer the earth, dress and keep the garden, and not to eat of the fruit of the tree, not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In other words, don't make yourself independent of me. Because if you do that, you're going to lose the covenant. So when Eve took of the fruit and gave it to Adam, then what Adam in essence did was, he says, I don't need you no more, God, I got this. And when he said, I got this, he died. Because he said, the day you eat of this tree, you're going to die. The day you call yourself being independent of me, you're going to die. And he said, well, he didn't die that day. He died spiritually that day. Because he had no relationship with God. You understand? And all of a sudden, now he had to cover himself. And you look at his covering and look at God's covering, and it don't compare. He had a fig leaf. I mean, really. So that's the Edenic covenant, right? So the second one is the Adam. It's called the Adamic covenant, which is Adam, basically, and that is. And let me back up. So the covenant for Edenic covenant was innocence. That was a time of innocence. Everybody was innocent. There was no such thing as guilt. They didn't know what guilt was. Everything was innocent. It's the same thing that we think of our children when they're little boo-boo, little Johnny, they're just innocent, right? And that type of thing. So it was during that time. And then after that covenant came the Adamic covenant, which was conscience. Because once he sinned, he all of a sudden now has a conscience. That's why he wouldn't put the fig leaf on. Does that make sense? And so in that covenant, the promise, the only thing he had in that covenant was a promise, which was a seed. He said it's going to be a seed. I promise you one thing, there's going to be a seed that's going to come from this woman that's going to crush the head of the serpent, and the serpent's going to bruise his heel. That's the only promise he got. There's going to be a seed coming out of this woman. That was it, right? And so only thing he could do is with his conscience be obedient. And the third covenant would be the Noah covenant. So during the Noah covenant, that's when human government was introduced. This is interesting. So there was no government, there was no law, chief. No law. That's when the police chief came into play. You know what I'm saying? With Noah, that type of thing. Because up until that time, there was no law. It's interesting. So there was, what happened if I do this? There's no law. It's just, the only thing you have is just you and God. Now you got human law now is into play during the Noah time. And the sign for that was the rainbow, of course. And then he got one promise. I promise you one thing, Noah. I won't never destroy this earth no more with water. You see it? And then the fourth covenant now, which was the Abrahamic covenant, which was, that's during the dispensation of promise. So we went from innocence to conscience, from conscience to human government, from human government to promise, the Abrahamic covenant. And the sign for his covenant was circumcision. You understand? So every male had to be circumcised. That was part of that Abrahamic covenant. And the promise was, in Abraham, all the families of the earth will be blessed. He said, I'll guarantee you one thing. I'm going to bless the whole world through you. All right? The instructions during that time was they were allowed now to eat meat, but they were not supposed to mess with the blood. So they had to, if they're going to kill an animal, had to drain the blood. You had capital punishment was instilled during that time. Excuse me, that's during the Noah time. You had those things. But during Abraham's time, separation. As Abraham must leave his country and his family. The instructions for Abraham was, under this covenant, I need you to circumcise. That's the sign. And then he says, I'm going to bless your whole family. He said, now Abraham needs you to leave your family because they're crazy. It wasn't because it was. No, they was worshiping idol gods and all that kind of stuff. So he said, you got to leave. Just leave the whole area because you ain't gonna be able to hear me in that set. He said, where am I going? He said, to a city that I show you. And so Abraham had to leave by faith and go find a city whose builder and maker was God. This is interesting. So you have that covenant. All right, and then so that's that covenant. And then we move from the Abraham covenant to the Moses covenant, which is what we're reading now. And we're going to read some today where he's getting ready to introduce the Moses covenant. The Mosaic covenant was the dispensation of law. That means that now there are laws. When Moses went to the mountain, he came back with 10 commandments, laws. Here are laws. If you read the book of Leviticus, it gives you all these laws that says you can do this and you can't do this. If you do this, then this is what you do to them. This is how you punish them. You have these laws that were put into play. And during this time, the instructions was law and ordinance. The instructions was basically that there's going to be law and ordinance. It's going to be an ordinance. There's going to be a law for everything. What if a man take my donkey? Well, if your man take your donkey, this is what you do. It had laws for everything, right? And now we are no longer in the dispensation of law. We are now, brings us to our time, we're in the dispensation of grace, which means that we live by grace. We walk by grace. The grace of God is the covenant that we're under. The grace covenant is better than any of the other covenants that came along, because what God is saying is that if you mess up, I got you covered.
Amen. Praise God.
Yeah, that's an amen moment right there. Because y'all like y'all never messed up. If you mess up, he says, I got you covered. That's a good. That's okay. I got 2 amens. I'm trying to get. I thought I would get a few more, but maybe y'all ain't never messed up. I don't know. I mean, I done messed up before, And I said, man, I really need your grace right now. You understand? And so, yeah, I'm short. Missed the mark. I ain't even hit the wall. I shot slap over there somewhere. I missed the whole thing. So we living now. And the sign for the new covenant is the Holy Spirit. Interesting, right? And so, and the instructions for this time is grace and evangelism. He gave you grace. What should we give others?
Grace.
Yeah. It's tough right there now. Because we don't like to judge people.
Right.
Like we receive from God. You know what I'm saying? God forgive you. I ain't forgiving them. I'm going to tell you right now, I go to my grave. You know, come on now. Lord. Grace for grace. That's tough. I ain't getting away. I was trying. I hope not get anybody in on that. It's a little tough. We work on that a little bit. That's okay. That's how, you know, sometimes when you got some tough meat, you got to let it marinate a little bit, coach. It won't get down to the bone, you understand?
That one need a little tender.
Yeah, it got a little tender. You got to let it sit overnight sometimes. That type, you know, that type of, you want it to be tender tomorrow. That's okay. Let it marinate. Just don't run it off. It's going to be all right. All right, don't rinse it off now. Don't rinse it off. You put that salt on there, it will tenderize it. That's one thing it will do. And when you cook it, you got to cook it slow. Can't cook them kind of fast, coach. That type of thing. You got to let them cook slow. That's what Bishop Ellis told me that. He told me that when I was getting ready to get consecrated as a bishop. I called him and told him what I was getting done. I wanted him to know. And he said, okay, Smyre. And, you know, he got that scratchy voice. And he said, Smyre, he said, you know, one good thing about you kept your nose clean. You kept your nose clean. I said, well, thank you, Bishop. And he said, you know what, you kept your nose clean, you kept your family, you managed your family well, you met all the criteria. He said, and he said, I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to get off the phone. And I hadn't talked to him in like 3 years. So, you know, when I'm talking to him, this is, you know, telling him what. So he said, you know, it was right after Thanksgiving. He says, you know, on Thanksgiving, he said, Mr. Brina told me to cook the turkey. He said, now we go cook everything else, you cook the turkey. I said, okay. And if you know Bishop Ellis, every time he's telling something, he's teaching. So he never telling it just to tell it. And he says, so I had to get that turkey. And he said, I got that turkey, man. And man, I rubbed him down. He said, I anointed that turkey with butter, another turkey down, you know, flipped that turkey around. He said, I put all that stuff in it. You know all that stuff, and celery, and I chopped it up, man, and fine, stuffed him down there, put some salt down and seasoned him down there real good, and flipped him around, you know. And he said, I got it. He said, and then I flipped him up. He said, most people cook their turkey with the breast what? He said, no. He said, I turned the turkey and put the breast down, and I wrapped him up real tight, put him in the oven. He said it was 5 o'clock that evening, Thanksgiving Eve. I put him in the oven, 5 o'clock, put it in the oven on 220 degrees. He said, and I let it cook all night long. He said it cooked all night long. He said it just cooked, and that type of thing. And he said, man, he said it was next day about 12 o'clock.
Wow.
He said, man, that thing done smelt up the whole house. He said it was smelling so good. He said, I went down there and got the turkey out. He said, my wife was there when I pulled it out. And she said, you done cooked the turkey upside down. He said, that ain't how you cook a turkey. He said, shut up, woman. You told me to cook the turkey. I got the turkey. Y'all handle y'all business. So gets the turkey out. He said, and man, when he pulled it out, he said, you couldn't, the bone, he said, you just pulled the leg right out, just slip out the meat. He said, it was so tender. He said it was tender and juicy. He said the meat wasn't dry because I cooked it upside down. He said, and that's the problem right with the church today. He tied all that back in the church, right? He says, you get consecrated as a bishop, don't you consecrate nobody else for a while. He said, put them on about 220. Flip them upside down and let them cook for a while. He said, we got too many dry bishops now. And then he said, and he prayed for me. Listen, then he prayed for me and hung up the phone. So we're in the time of grace. That's where we are today. But in the text that we're reading today, they are now getting ready to go from the promise, Abrahamic circumcision, that type of thing. They're getting ready to move into a place of law. Okay? And then the last covenant that will happen is when Christ comes back. That's the millennial, the dispensation time of millennial kingdom. That's a new David covenant. right? And it deals with the Messiah kingdom. Now not only is the Holy Spirit here, but the kingdom is now back here, and the promise is kingdom reign. That's when we'll reign with him forever. All right? Okay. So if y'all got any questions about that, you can follow me later. I can answer any questions you got, I hope. All right. So now we're transitioning now into a dispensation or a time of law. And we're in Exodus chapter 18. If you'll just follow along, I'm going to read here, and we'll try to read one chapter, then have a little small discussion, questions or whatever. If you got a question, have something jump out to you while I'm reading, underline it, highlight it, and try to do this. While I'm reading, see if you can find some symbol of Christ in the text. If you can find something that represents Christ in the text. You may find something, you may not. You understand? But just you want to be looking for Christ, something that symbolizes Christ in the text. Ready? When Jethro, the priest of the Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, and the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back, and her 2 sons, of which the name of one was Gershom, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land. And the name of the other was Eliezer, for the God of my father said he was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses into the wilderness, where he encamped at the mount of God. So you got to picture this. Moses now, they have escaped Pharaoh. You remember Pharaoh's army has died in the Red Sea. It's done covered up all them. You remember Moses told him, he said, this is the last time I see your face, Pharaoh. I'll see your face no more. Destroyed all them in the Red Sea. The horsemen washed up on the sea. Moses' sister pulled out the tambourine, started beating the tambourine, and they broke out into a praise and started shouting and dancing. You look at me like that ain't in there. It's in there. And so it was in there. And now Moses has led them. Now what was once chasing them is not chasing them no more. All right. So they have been delivered out of Egypt. Now the next challenge is, how do you deliver Egypt out of them? That's the challenge. Because once you've been in something for a long time and you can get out of it, but your mind will still be there. It'll still be there. So he's reuniting. He sees Jethro. He sees his father-in-law. You know, Jethro, for me, that'd be Lovey. Hey, Lovey. See you. You understand? That type of thing. And bring the kids out and the wife and that type of thing. So he's reunited with his family. And where'd I stop? Where'd I stop?
At the bottom of verse 6.
Okay. And Moses went out. Verse 7. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and did obeisance and kissed him. And they asked each other of their welfare. How you doing? And they came into the tent. Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done. Man, could you imagine that story? I mean, that's pretty powerful. He gets to go through the whole story, tells him about the plagues and all the stuff, man. And you ain't gonna believe, you know. I'll be telling him, you ain't gonna believe this right here. You know, is it over yet? You know, see that? See, the only problem is I wouldn't want to be Jethro, man. Just tell me the end of the story, and then I can listen to all the rest of it, because this is too intense. So Moses tells his father-in-law all that the Lord had done Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for the Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them by the way, and how the Lord delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which the Lord had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, blessed be the Lord, who have delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who have delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all the gods, for in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them. Wow. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. And Aaron came and all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses, father-in-law, before God. This is powerful. I mean, you got Jethro, man, that he now recognizes. You remember the beginning of this thing that set it off was when Pharaoh told Moses, I don't know your God. I don't know it. And so from that point on, God set out to make sure that Pharaoh knew him, that his little Creole group, the little magicians, that they knew him, and made sure all of Egypt knew him, and now and that the folk knew him, and that he was making himself known. All right. And this is let me throw this at you as this little side piece. What is the purpose of evangelism? To proclaim. The purpose of evangelism. Remember, we in the dispensation time of grace and evangelism, what's the purpose of evangelism?
So people know that they can. So people know that Jesus died for them. So you can let people know that Jesus died.
Okay. Somebody else. I ain't saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying somebody else. Y'all agree with that? You looked at your mama.
For those that are sick, there's healing.
Okay.
For those that are,
Spread the good news. So the purpose of it, those are benefits of it. The purpose of it, though, is really so that God can get glory in places where he hadn't been getting it.
Oh, amen. Praise God.
Interesting. So that God can get glory, because the whole earth is full of his glory. And he wants, that scripture has to come to pass. And it comes to pass when we evangelize, because if they don't know God, they can't give God glory. So he comes back, tells this story to Jethro, and Jethro, man, goes to worshiping, don't he? Man, let's make sacrifice, you understand? Go out, have worship service, call the elders, he ain't waiting to go to church. Let's just go and do this right now. And so now he's getting glory in a place that he had never gotten glory before. So the purpose of it, the benefits of evangelism is people get saved. But the purpose of it is that God get the glory.
Amen.
All right?
God.
That changes a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So now, so we got now Jethro, and where we at? Verse 13, 14? Huh?
13.
13. It came to pass on the morrow that Moses set to judge the people. And the people stood by Moses from the morning until the evening. Right? Let me put this in my terminology. Now, you ever been to court and it was a long line?
Yes. Lord.
And you had to wait. You ever got a ticket? So you got to wait till they call your docket and all that. It's a long line. And you just sitting there. I know, listen, I ain't never had a ticket. So they're sitting there, the long line. Moses is the only one judging every case. Now, y'all got to get this now. 1.5 million people estimated. Black folk. It's hot. In the desert. And they coming to him with their problems. When it get hot, people have more problems. I'm going to tell you that right now. So they coming to Moses one by one. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that, verse 14, that he did to the people, he said, "What's this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning until evening?" And Moses said unto his father-in-law, "Because the people come unto me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws." And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, "This thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear out. You're going to wear away, both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too what? Heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone." That's important now. That's important. Can't do it by yourself. You're going to wear yourself out, and the folk going to get wore out waiting on you to work it out. "Hearken now to my voice." He said, "Listen to me now." What's the lady said? "Listen, listen. Linda, listen. Hearken to me now, my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God, and that thou teach them ordinance and laws, and show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men," somebody say able, "such as that fear God, and men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of 10. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they may bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. And if thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure. All the people shall also go to their place in peace." So Moses hearkened, he listened to the voice of their father-in-law and did all that he had said. And Moses chose able men out of all of Israel, made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. And they judged the people at all seasons. The hard cases they brought them to Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land. Any questions? Comments? Yes.
About finding Jesus.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm glad you brought that up. They forgot. Go ahead.
that whole last part, 19 through 26,
Okay.
is like explaining how Jesus came about, like finding his disciples and not allowing the whole burden to be on him.
That's good. And even Jesus, remember he said, I'll be here with you 3 years. I'm cutting out.
Yeah.
Lo, I'll be with you always in spirit. But I need y'all to take it from me. Interesting. That's good. Anybody else?
I just wanted to make a comment about Jethro. Just the important part of his, I guess you could say, fatherly advice, how big that, even like how you were talking about so many, look up to Bishop Ellis and so many others that were before them, even though he didn't know who God was, just that insight from, what are you doing? You're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
listen to it.
Yeah, that's wisdom, man. And that's the thing. He learned, Bishop Dixon used to tell me this. He says, what took me 70 years to learn, I can teach you in one day. He said, now you can take the 7-year route, but you're not going to get far down the road on learning stuff.
He said, you can do what?
You can take the route and say, well, you know what, I ain't going to listen to you. I learn on my own. He said, but you're going to run out of time. So you're able to gain so much more by listening to them that have lived and let them share with you. And then you're able to learn what took them 70 years to learn. You can get in one day. That makes sense? And that's the thing, man. That's the thing. And you have to admire that. I admire that. I know. And you have to make yourself available for that. For it's not up to the person that's lived 70 years to call on you. It's really up to you to call on them. Does that make sense? It don't have to be 70 years. They just got more experience. They got more experience. If they got experience in an area and you don't have it. Yeah, go ahead.
So it's funny, this conversation kind of came up in a different setting because just relating it to today, where it seems like whether it's the younger generation or I don't know what you want to say, millennials or whatever, seems to be closed off to that advice or and even in some in our generation seem to be closed off to wisdom, in a sense.
You think that?
Yeah, I do. I think it needs
I'm
to be
gonna let the
more.
millennials respond. Go ahead.
I do.
Because I can tell you, I understand. I have felt that way before myself, but it's not for me to think for them. What's your thought?
I feel like at least for my friend group, because you attract who you want to be around. So it's like for my friend group, it might be different from my sister, is different from anybody else. But for my friend group, we are going to be hesitant who we allow into our space. So we may take advice, but if I know your past and what you went through, you might be leading me down a path that I don't want to go to. So we kind of pick and choose who we get our wisdom from. Sometimes it can come off rude, like, oh, I ain't gonna listen to you because I know what you've been doing. You try to hide your truth, and we kind of want to have it open and that thing. So I feel like we pick and choose who we allow into our space. But I would say most of the time we are open. I think we kind of are into the mentee type thing now that we're seeing. So as well, I feel like my mom's group kind of was older when they started doing the mentor-mentee, where we're like seeking people like that.
Kind of like.
As the mom,
She said
what
kinda
I would
like.
like to say is that I know when I grew up, I had a grandmother on both sides, and I had a great-grandmother, and I had a great-great-grandmother, but she doesn't have those generations.
Okay.
And the wisdom that they imparted into me, some of it, I didn't understand it, a lot of it, and my grandmother would always say, well, come here, baby, sit right here. And she always made me sing those old hymns. And when I went off to college, people was like, oh, those hymns. You're not old enough to know those hymns.
Wow.
And I said, because my grandmother made me sing them with
Wow.
her.
Wow.
And my grandmother made me sit down and listen, and, they gave me different all of them imparted a different type of wisdom into me. But Tyler doesn't have that now because they died out. So right now she just has my mom and Thomas's mom.
Okay.
There's no great grandmas in that generation to impart continual wisdom. But I try to give her wisdom. She sees me as her mom. But I try to tell her. She makes sense. But I try to tell her things so that it don't take her till she's 50 to get there.
Okay.
And then, but I always try to give them wisdom with the open for them to make the decision.
Right.
But
Okay.
if I see them going too far down the road, I'll just start.
She's like, no,
we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, too far.
Well,
I guess.
the millennials don't listen. I just want to make sure. I heard.
They don't accept.
No, and you know what? Something that she said. No, because there's different. Okay, there's different types of millennials where you have some, like you said, like you have a group of friends. You're open to advice, and I don't want to be judgmental about anybody, but you can go into certain environments where
They may not be open to this. I mean, that's.
they're not
but
even
I think-
open,
I think-
whether it's open to the word or anything. So I'm more or less talking about secular environments where it's a different mindset already. So I'm not talking about
Let me share.
reaching
Let
or
me
something.
share. Let me share why I responded the way I did to your question, because I just learned this. Is that what I have learned is that if you give millennials an opportunity to voice their thought, they will listen to whatever you got to say. So that's and I just learned this. I mean, like from somebody else that did a workshop at their church, and they was telling me about. I was like, "Thank you, man, for telling me that, because I wouldn't want to have to learn that the way you did." And so,
also, it's like millennials. It's like my generation, but if you go below 18, those aren't millennials.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
that's Gen. Is that Gen X?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Gen I.
Gen I.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. So,
I'm
Coach,
Gen X.
it's gonna be tough to get your question
Yeah.
answered. I know you. He's want to know what the original question was.
Did I hear it right?
Original question.
The original question. Don't nothing else.
It's about okay, how Jethro.
Just repeat it.
Okay. The question was taking that setting as far as how Moses was open to his.
I got, not to cut you off, I got that part.
Okay.
I got that part. I'm saying the question about the millennials.
It seems like in this environment today, as far as working backwards or trying to get them open to advice and different things like that, what are some things that we can do?
I think the key thing you got to answer your question. Did you have something you want to say on that?
No, I think he did.
Okay, go ahead. Come on.
I was gonna say that I feel like it all depends on backgrounds. It depends on what they've been through. Cause some people don't. I mean, they just can't talk to everybody. You know what I'm saying? So,
I think it's the
they-
approach.
Yeah, they're gonna pick and choose
It's
who
the
they talk to.
approach.
Some people are too aggressive when they want to give advice, or some people are subtle. You know what I'm saying? So, in my opinion, I think all the generations be the same.
You pick and choose.
Yeah, you pick and choose who you want to talk to. So it's not a millennial thing.
I have learned that if I give
To make their
an opportunity, a platform for them to share their thoughts and ideas the way they want to share it,
Right.
it works better. And I'm learning at this myself, because, all of my children are considered the millennial group, But I will say that they are all open, for the most part, to listen. Like if they got something like